I bought my first planner for 2026 and it's not a Hobonichi. In today's video, I want to talk to you about this cute little book and I'll give you a quick tour of what it looks like. We'll do a comparison to the A6 and I'll talk to you about some of my plans for how I will be setting it up and using it for next year. We're also going to pick some ink that we'll be using as part of the setup, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later. So if that sounds like something that would interest you, then I invite you to settle in, grab yourself a tea or a coffee or whatever beverage of choice, a snack, and something to keep you company and help you feel cozy while we hang out and chat about the Midori Hibino. I do have an agenda. I'm just going to move that aside. I did receive this book a little while ago and I did film an unboxing, so I'm just going to go ahead and insert that footage now. I just received this package in the mail and I'm a little out of breath because I'm so excited. Okay, so in case you are unfamiliar with the Hibino, it's essentially a 2-page per day A6, and I'm just testing the flatness. You can see it doesn't quite lie as flat as the A6 Hobonichi. But I think the spine can be trained. So as long as the spine can be trained, I can live with the fact that it doesn't quite lie flat from the start. So that is the first thing that I wanted to let you know about. This year in 2026, it comes in 3 colors. So traditionally it's come in this brown, this light blue, and then I think this year they've also come out with a light gray. But me being a brown neutral lover, I chose the light brown. So this is the packaging that's on the outside. It just says monthly block, daily on 2 pages. And it also comes with this little leaflet that shows some examples of how others have used this book as well. So it's saying here you can do scheduling, daily notebook, free journaling across both pages, and daily logs. Okay, there's a few things that have really drawn me to this book. First of all, while it is quite thick, it is still an A6 size, which makes it very comfortable to hold in my hand. It's not too different from holding both of these books together in my hand. And if I'm not mistaken, it is a tight fit, but I do think this does fit inside the A6 though. This is the case that I've been using for my Hobonichi in 2025. And if I really want to, you can see it does fit inside. It is a little tight, and I probably won't use this case for the Hibino, but it's good to know that it does fit as long as it doesn't chunk up too much, because sometimes when I've got this in my purse, I just don't necessarily want to have this, I don't want to put this directly into my purse just because I'm worried about the pages getting folded or anything like that. So it does fit, but because there is an extra little surface area around the pages, it is slightly bigger. It is slightly wider than the Hobonichi A6 Techo. Something I really love about this book is the fact that they do use cream paper, which I think is so lovely. I have been looking for an A6 planner that offers really thin Toy My River paper in cream, and to my knowledge, I think this is the only one that's out there, but please correct me if I'm wrong, because in case this doesn't work out, I would love to know about other options that pretty much do have the same functions as the Hobonichi Techo, because this system does work really well for me, but I'm excited to switch things up for 2026. When you open this up, you've got this title page here. You've got a full yearly calendar for 2026 and 2027. You've got future log, so a space to add future dates for the entire year. And then you've got your monthly calendar spreads. So it starts in December, and I love how minimal this is. All of the fonts and line colors are a dark brown, and then the shading is a lighter shade of brown. So I really love the cream paper as well as the detailing of the brown font color. It's just so soft on the eyes, and I really do like that. So then you have all of the months, and it looks like it goes until January, and then you have the start of your daily pages. So yeah, so in terms of future months for the next year, you have one extra month, whereas in the Hobonichi Techo, you have January, February, and March for the next year. The daily pages have a lot of similar aspects to the Hobonichi Techo, but it has a lot more room, which I'm really excited about. So on the left side of the page, you have a full 24-hour timeline, and you have a very subtle margin over here, which is very similar to the margin in the Hobonichi Techo. So if you wanted to use this space for time blocking or daily logging, I really like that they've made it so that it's you actually have 2 boxes per hour, and I prefer having 1 box per half hour just because I have a lot of meetings that start at the half hour mark or that maybe only run for half an hour. So this is lovely. You have a little space in the top here for the temperature or the weather of the day if you want. You have a couple lines here if you wanted to add some kind of title. And then you have all this space for taking notes. Because this uses a 2.5 millimeter grid, the amount of writing that you can fit in here is not dissimilar to the Hobonichi cousin. On this right-hand page, they have a monthly overview calendar, so you can always see where you're at in the year. And then they have the day, the number of the day. So January 1st is the first day of 365 days. And I think that's kind of a nice touch that it goes on to show you what the day, the number of the day is. It also comes with 2 ribbon bookmarks. One is a brown, a dark brown color, and one is like a deep forest green color, which I think is so beautiful. And I don't normally use the bookmarks, but I think for this year, I am actually going to use it. So I'm glad that I'm going to have 2 of these to help me before using this planner. After all of the daily pages, we get to the end of the book, and we have a couple of blank grid pages. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 grid pages, and then we just have the final page, which is personal information. So as you can see, it is a very minimal book, and it has a lot of space. Now, as I mentioned, it doesn't necessarily lay that flat from the start, but my understanding is that you can train it. So I'm just going to test that out now. Yeah, and you can fold this back on itself. So sometimes when I'm at the vet, if I'm taking notes, I do this with my Techo as well. I'll just fold it back onto itself, and it looks like you can do that with the Hibino as well. So that's really good if you do need it. Yeah, so it might take a little bit of extra work, but you can see here it does eventually lay pretty flat. I imagine it'll be a lot more comfortable to use in the middle section of the book, but it'll be a little less comfortable writing in these early pages. However, I know that some people sometimes will prop it up with a book, and even the beginning pages of the Hobonichi are a little more challenging to write on, so it's not a big deal for me to hold it down flat and write on this side. That might bother some people, but I'm expecting that and I'm okay with it. Since I unboxed the Hibino, I started setting things up, and the reason why I have been setting this up so early in the year is because my plan to use this book is to see if I can successfully use this to replace this book, and this book, which is my Hobonichi cousin. So just to explain a little bit more, I currently use my Hobonichi A6 and my weekly supplement as my planner. So I make all my plans in the daily pages of the Hobonichi Techo, and I use the weekly supplement as a place for me to track my schedule and get a weekly view of everything that I've got going on. And then I use my cousin to take more long form notes. So this is an example of when I was doing a little bit of research on motivation, and I used my cousin pages to take these notes because those notes would not have fit in this A6. And I probably could have used a blank notebook, but this was leftover from when I was using the cousin as my all-in-one in the past. I would use the pages, the daily pages, for things like this, and I would use the weekly overview in the same way that I'm using the weekly supplement. So this all-in-one book is actually quite an ideal situation for me, but because it is a bigger book, it's less portable. So something that I really love about this A6 is that I can fit this in my purse and I can take this with me wherever I go. So if I am out and I need to take notes, I have a space to do that. And I really have appreciated having this book to be able to do all of that. At the same time, I've been challenging myself to buy less books for next year. So instead of buying a weekly supplement, an A6, a cousin, and then a Hobonichi Weeks, I wanted to see if I could tweak things for 2026. And on top of that, I am a really big fan of cream colored paper, and there aren't that many A6 sized planners out there that offer a cream paper option. So I have decided that I'm going to give the Midori Hibino a try. As you can see here, there is a difference in the paper, and I love this beautiful cream paper. If you are curious, when you first open up the Hibino, you have the title page, you have the yearly calendar, you have a future log, and if I'm being honest, I prefer this style in the Hobonichi for the future log because this allows you to use it as a tracker or as an index. I don't think I'll be using this as an index because there aren't enough spaces for an entire month. So that's unfortunate. I don't know what I'm going to use this future log for at the moment, but if you have any ideas, let me know. And then the monthlies start in December, which I think, yes, which is the same for the Hobonichi. The difference here is that the monthlies finish on January of 2027, and the monthlies in here go until March 2026 or March 2027. So you get an extra 2 months of the following year in your Hobonichi Techo, but I've never really used these extra months anyway, except for some ink swatching. So I'm not too concerned about not having the extra monthly spreads in the Hibino, but something to note if that matters to you. And then after you finish with the monthlies, it goes straight into the dailies. So in here, you get a title page. Oh, so you get an extra blank page, which I clearly haven't used. Then you get a title page for every month, and then you go into the dailies. And then the main difference between this one and this one is you get 1 page per day, but over here you get 2 pages per day. Once you finish with all of the dailies, you get several blank pages. You get, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So you get 16 grid pages unless things have changed in 2026. And then you have a bunch of extra pages. And I do have a plan for what I'm going to do in the Hibino. That is the Techo. I guess another comparison I can make, it would be easier to do this with an unused original, but if you can see, this is like double the width. And I was honestly worried about this feeling like a really chunky book, but it actually still, because of the fact that it's an A6, it's still really comfortable in my hand and it doesn't feel overwhelming. I'm also planning on keeping this as a pen-only book, so I'm not planning on adding a lot of ephemera or stickers or anything like that, just because I really don't want to bulk this up any more than possible. So this book is primarily a pen-only book as well, but you can see that it has puffed up quite a lot. And I think the reason why is because I've been using it to do a lot of ink swatches, and I've realized that ink swatches crinkle the pages up and it makes it a little more fluffy. So I don't mind that, obviously. I think the sound of the pages is really satisfying, but for this book, I'm probably going to hold off on using it for ink swatches just to keep it as lean as possible So I'll probably move all my ink swatching and things into a separate book, which probably makes more sense anyway. It's just nice sometimes to have this, to do ink swatches in here, because I always have this book open on my desk. But I have no shortage of notebooks, so I think it'll be okay if I don't do ink swatching in here. So I've added some sticky notes in here to give you a sense of how I'm planning on using this book. Oh yeah, one thing I will note is that yes, the beginning of the book is a little harder to write with because it's so thick. I think it'll take probably a few months, maybe March or so, for it to really comfortably like lie flat. So I think the early months here are going to be a little annoying to write on, but it's not impossible, because if you want to write on this page, it does lay flat on the desk. And then once you want to write on this page, it's not a problem at all. So it will take a little bit of maneuvering, but I don't think it'll be, I guess we'll see how annoying that is. Okay, so as for the book, I still have no idea how I want to use this future log. So if you have any ideas, please let me know. For the monthly calendars, I plan on using it similarly to how I've been using it in my Hobonichi Techo. So yeah, so basically the way I have it set up is I will do a little temperature high and average, and a little drawing to represent what the weather was like in the top corner. And then for the rest of the square, I will note down events, mainly people that I've spent time with, or if there's any other events that I really want to remember. And I may decorate these pages with some stickers, because I don't think it will bulk it up too much if I'm just doing a little bit of light decorating. So these pages will probably be on the decorative side. So yeah, I put here weather, tracking, and events. Okay, so with some of the things that I was using the notes pages for, such as steps and my year at a glance symptom tracker, as well as things like my book log and my movie log. I like having those collections in my main book, just because even though I may use other books to write reviews or go more in depth into my thoughts, I still like having a place where I can just very quickly jot down something I've read or something that I've watched, and then I can go back and finish my reviews or whatever on my own time. When I think back to some of the other planners that I've used, those first pages often are blank, because I'm not really, like I'm coming off a vacation, or I'm not really that busy. So you can see here, like I had quite a few pages, quite a few blank pages in the beginning, because I wasn't really doing any work. Like usually this week is completely off between the first and the weekend. And so in the past, I was using it as like swatch pages and things like that. And even in this year, I didn't start doing work until January the 6th. So for this book, I plan on using the first few pages in January for some of those collections, since we don't have a lot of note pages in the back. So for example, here, I'm going to recreate the steps workout tracker that I did here. And then I'm also planning on recreating the symptom tracker here, because I found this extremely helpful, and I do reference it often when I'm at the doctor, things like that. So I think I'm definitely going to do the same thing in here. I'm also going to make a favorite meals page where I can note down all of the meals that we tend to love and we like to incorporate into our meal plans, so that I always have a space to reference when I'm doing my meal planning. And currently in here, that is living on the favorites page, and I have them grouped by spring, summer, autumn, and winter, and I'll just do the same thing here. Then I will do a book log, and I think this will be more than enough space for me, given how small these grids are. Movie log, TV shows, a friend and date log, and that, oh, and then letters sent. I was using the 365 checklist as my letters sent, but I think I'll do something similar here, except it'll be more of a log where I'll probably write down the person that I actually sent the letter to, and maybe I'll log down the date so that I can keep track of that a little bit better. So that's kind of the first few days of January, and I've just left them as post-its for now, because if I need to start work a little earlier, then maybe I'll rethink how I set this up. And also, some of these trackers may not need to be 2 full spreads because there are so many lines here. I could potentially, if I really needed to, I could probably fit some of these things on 2 pages. Now I'm going to take you to the Sunday spread. In this book, when I was challenging myself to incorporate more into this book, back when I was using 2 different weeks and I was trying to take some of those elements and move them into here, I realized that Sundays were a perfect day to use as a habit tracker, because I don't do work on Sundays, and so this page was often left blank, and I would use it for like currently inks or just regular notes, but often it would just be empty. And so what I plan to do is continue to use this Sunday before every week, and I plan to turn it into my weekly overview. So instead of having a separate book as my weekly overview, I have decided that I'm going to try out setting up the weekly overview here. I'm unsure of how I'm going to feel with this being back into the book. It's kind of funny because when I had the cousin, I loved having everything in one book, and even though the weeks were all grouped together in the front of the book, I didn't really have a problem with flipping back and forth. I would usually just keep it open on my weekly schedule, and if I needed to take notes, I would flip to the daily page, but the default would be to keep the weekly schedule open on my desk. And initially, when I started using the weekly supplement, I thought it was going to be a big problem having these separate, but it turned out to be even better for me because I had this little book that I could just leave open on my desk and always be able to reference it throughout the week. So moving it back into the same book might be a difficult adjustment because I do love this weekly supplement so much, but I also love the idea of just having it all in one book so that if I'm out somewhere and I need to double check my schedule or write something in my agenda, I am not having to juggle 2 books. And it's not such a big problem that I can't use this system. In fact, I love this system, and there is a part of me that is a little worried I'm going to regret not being in here. But I also just want to try it. I want to try having my weekly overview back in here. And I think Sunday is going to be a perfect day for me to preset all of this up. And that is the key. I think I need to preset all of my weeklies for the entire year before 2026 starts. Otherwise, if I'm having to take the step before each week to put all of my dates in, then inevitably I'm going to get to a point where I'm overwhelmed, I'm really busy, and I can't fathom taking the time to do this, and then I'm probably going to abandon this book. So one of the main reasons why I bought this so early in the season and that I'm setting it up now is I am planning on setting up all of my weekly overviews in advance before next year starts. And so you can see I've already taken my pencil and I've already outlined the general layout. So I already know how I'm going to set it up, and it's just going to be a matter of me filling in all of the dates. So that is definitely going to take some time, and I'm probably going to reach a certain point where I'm hating the task, but I think it's going to be worth it if I do all of that ahead of time. So, yeah, so that's my plan for Sunday. So on Sunday for the upcoming week, I will have this overview. And then on the daily pages, I have this 24-hour space on the left-hand side of the page that I plan to use as my daily schedule. So normally I like being able to see my entire week so I can kind of get a sense for which days are going to be busier than others, and it'll help me with my energy management. But in the actual day that I'm in, the most important thing really is like managing my energy within that single day. So I'm not sure if I'm definitely going to copy out my schedule, because it will be a little repetitive to have it here and then here. But I kind of do something similar in here anyway, where I tend to fill this out at the beginning of the week. And then as the day, like during each day, I will rewrite my meetings and I will write out my to-do list. So it won't be that different if I'm setting up my week ahead of time and then during the actual day, I'm just putting in my meetings, and as it always happens, more meetings will come up as the week progresses. So this, sometimes I don't always update this, but the daily ends up being the most up to date because that's the day that I'm actually in. So my thoughts are that I'll use this side as my schedule, and I might even do a little bit of light daily logging. So in the past, I've liked to log the meals that I eat, and I don't do that anymore. But if I did want to start doing that again, I think this would be the perfect space to do it, just because there's so much room. And I also log things like when I do exercise and that type of thing. So I could also log that in here, since I'll have this page, potentially I have this page open on my desk at all times instead of the weekly. So that's kind of my thought on how these two will work together. I'm really excited to try it out, and I think I'll know pretty quickly within a month of trying out this system if that's going to work for me. So I think it's going to be kind of a good thing to have this weekly overview kind of bundled with my dailies. I know that is something that other planner companies have been offering, is grouping together the month, the week, and the dailies. And I actually like how Hobonichi bundles the months and then the weeks and then the days. So I'm not sure if I'm going to like this, because there is something very satisfying with being able to just flip through your entire year in this way. But I also see the benefit of having your weekly attached to your daily, so you're not having to do too much crazy flipping throughout the year. And then with my Saturday, because that's another day that doesn't always get a lot of use, I was using my Saturdays for meal planning, and I was using my Sundays for health tracking. So my plan is for my Sundays, or for my Saturday pages, this is more than enough space for me to do meal planning and for me to do habit tracking, and maybe even more things, because there's just so much space here. So anything that I was kind of doing in the weekends here, I'm going to move into my Saturday page. So that leaves me with Monday to Friday being for regular planning, and then Saturday and Sunday for the health tracking and the weekly overview. And then, because I won't be getting the cousin next year, anything that I used to use this cousin for these types of notes, my hope is that this will be more than enough space for me to capture any long form notes. So instead of me having to only take short notes in here and then move to my cousin if I want to take long notes, the idea is that I'll be able to use this book for everything. So again, it's an experiment. We'll see how it goes. But what I do know is that I love this enough that if this fails as a planner and I decide to go back to the A6, I will happily repurpose this as a regular notebook because I just love these tiny squares and I think you can fit so much information in here. I would be happy to convert this into a study notebook or just a regular scratch pad type of notebook if I need to. So I am not concerned about not being able to use this. And I did consider getting the A6 and the weekly supplement as a backup, but I think I just want to try this out first because this was an investment. And then if I really can't stand it by the spring, then I will think about switching systems. Now I'm going to confess something. The reason why I felt more confident in trying out this system and investing so much time into setting up manually weekly spreads for the entire year all at once is because I actually picked up a 2025 Hibino on a very big discount because it's so late in the year. I'm actually really glad that I did because it helped me answer questions like, can I actually write in these really tiny grids? And can I figure out a layout that is actually going to make sense for how I want to use it? So the first thing that I want to show you, which made me feel really good, is I took this entire page where I made notes on motivation, and I actually recopied it out onto the Hibino. And I was amazed to see that 2 pages here didn't even take up 2 pages here. So first of all, I think that's amazing. It just shows you like how much you can fit on this page if you're comfortable with writing small. I know not everybody is, but I am. So that's one thing that I was really excited about. And then the next thing that I wanted to show you was I recopied out my tracker. This is my current tracker that I have set up on my Saturday. And you can see here how much space it takes up. This takes up an entire page, and this just takes up like almost a quarter of the page. So I thought that was really great. This is how I envision the weekly spreads are going to look like. And I did do quite a few different iterations. So first I tried just using half a page, and you can see this was way too squished. I did not think I was going to be able to handle that. Then I just tried a few different approaches. I mean, these are pretty similar, but you can see some of them are squished over this way, some of them are that way. And then I landed on this, where I make use of the timeline on this side. So I start over here. It's a Monday start. I can fit 4 days on this page. And then I have 3 days plus an extra space for adding future notes, things like that. And then I have a little space up here, which I don't know what I'm going to do with yet, but it's nice that I have an extra space here that I can use for something. I was just playing around with whatever ink I had in my 1.1 stub, and I realized that I actually quite liked the mix of the green and the brown. So this brown, I believe, is Urban Sienna. It's a Diatramentis ink. And then this green is Dominant Industry Natural Green, and it's like a shimmer ink. And I like the fact that the Diatramentis is a document ink, so it's waterproof. This green is not waterproof, and I did contemplate buying a document green or document inks that would allow me to mix like an olive green, but I think I'm just going to work with the green that is already in my collection. And I think because this book is already so minimal, I'm going to pick one color, one green, and I'm just going to use that for the entire setup for the year. And then I'm going to pick one brown, and I'm going to use that for the entire setup. So I want to make sure that whatever color I use, I'm really happy with. And I'm actually quite happy with this combination, but I thought we could take a look at some inks together and pick the color scheme for my weekly setup. The other thing that I wanted to do is a pen test in here. I'll do a pen test first, and then we'll pick some inks. So I'm going to use one of the back pages as a pen test. Okay, well, right away, I feel really good about the fact that this ink isn't bleeding in any way. Like, it's not blooming on the page, which is something that really bothered me last year. Okay, well, so far so good. I mean, I think it seems to be okay. Even with that thicker 1.1 stub, I'm seeing maybe a little bit of ghosting, but I'm not seeing any bleed through. So that's good. Now I'm going to test out some potential ink combinations. I've grabbed all of my document browns. So I've got Diamine Forever Ink Butterscotch, Diatramentis Document Ink Brown, Diatramentis Document Ink Sepia Brown, which is currently in my Vanishing Point, and Document Ink Urban Sienna. Because the text is going to be on the thinner side, I'm going to use my Okoro dip pen for the writing, and then because I'm going to use my stub nib for the numbers, I'll use my Kakamori dip pen and hope that it'll give us a good sense by being able to get a broader line. So I've just got some water over here, and I need to get, let's see if I have, yeah, so I've got my little muddler that was a gift from Wendy Sue from Fountain Pen News. So So this is Diatramentis Sepia Brown. Because this is the 2025 version, I don't know if you can see that, but this is writing a lot more broad than it is in this book. Let me try to show you. So unfortunately, this is like, I think the same paper issues that everyone has experienced. I don't know if you can see that. So I'm glad to see that it doesn't seem to be a problem in the 2026 book. That makes me feel a lot better. This one is Document Brown. This is Urban Sienna. This is my go-to brown, but sometimes it's nice to have a bit of a change. And the last one is Dye Mine Forever Ink Butterscotch. I did not enjoy this ink on white paper, but I will say it looks a lot better on cream paper. So we'll just let those dry, and let's move on to the greens. So I grabbed some of my favorite greens, and we'll just do a comparison. So this one is a shimmer ink. I'm going to do that one last. I think I'll do this one first. So this is Sailor Shikiori Tokiwa Matsu. Oh, that's pretty. Okay, this is another one of my favorite inks. This is Sailor Shikiori Rikucha. And I actually have this currently inked in my Pilot Custom 823. Oh, I love that too. Okay, this one is a Wonder Pens collaboration with Dominant Industry. It's called Tuna and Olives. So this is more of like an olivey green. Forgot to write the names down. So here are the color options. Let me know which ones you think I should go with for the numbers. Which green do you think would go best? And which brown do you think would go best? I'm gonna think on it too, and next time I update you, I will probably just share the full setup when it's all done. Let me know if you have any questions. I know it's a bit extra to pre-date an entire year of weekly spreads ahead of time, but it's going to be a really fun experiment. And worst case scenario, oops, well, you can see here that did bleed through quite a bit. Worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out, then I think I'm going to be really happy that I at least tried, because I have been thinking about using a Hibino for a couple of years now, and I really just didn't want to use it as unless I had a real reason to use it. Like, I didn't want to get it just for the sake of adding it to my lineup. So I'm pushing aside my beloved Hobonichi to give this a try. We shall see how it goes, and I'm excited to take you along with me. All right, well, if you're still here, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you're doing well. I hope planner season has been fun and not too stressful. And if you have made some purchases for next year, let me know how things are going. And I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye!